Welcome back to Swift Tale, where unbelievable stories are brought to life with depth, suspense, and emotion. And if you're joining us for the very first time, let me ask you something before we begin. Would you have been able to recognize the truth if everyone around you was pretending? If you're not sure, then make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because today's tale is one that will challenge everything you think you know about loyalty, deception, and the quiet power of observation. Our story begins with a feared mob boss, a man whose very name sends chills through entire neighborhoods, who suddenly announces to the world that he has gone blind. But what no one knows, not his bodyguards, not his advisors, not even the woman he plans to marry, is that the blindness is completely fake. He is pretending, watching silently from behind dark glasses, studying how the people closest to him behave now that they believe he cannot see them. His goal is simple but twisted. He wants to know whether his fiancée truly loves him or whether she is secretly plotting behind his back. Yet the most unexpected twist comes from someone he never considered, a quiet black maid who works in the background, moving through the mansion unnoticed, her intelligence dismissed, her presence overlooked. It is she who begins to notice the strange inconsistencies in his behavior, the moments when his eyes track movement, the subtle reflexes of a man who can still see perfectly. But her discovery does not simply unravel the mob boss's deception. It sets off a chain reaction of dangerous secrets, hidden loyalties, and betrayals on both sides of the relationship. This story matters because it reveals how deception can poison trust at its core, how prejudice blinds people to the strength and awareness of those they underestimate, and how truth often comes from the most unexpected voice in the room. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll see just how one woman's discovery of a single secret can shatter an entire house of lies. The story truly begins inside the luxurious yet tension-filled mansion of the mob boss, a man known not only for his immense wealth, but for a ruthlessness that has kept him alive in a world where betrayal lurks around every corner. After surviving one too many close calls, he becomes convinced that danger no longer comes from rival gangs or enemies on the streets. It comes from inside his own home. In particular, his suspicions have turned toward his beautiful fiancée, a woman who once seemed to adore him, but whose recent behavior has created shadows of doubt in his mind. Rather than confront her outright, he crafts a plan as cunning as it is disturbing. He pretends to lose his vision completely, announcing to everyone that he has gone blind due to a sudden medical condition. Around him, the household staff panics, the security guards strengthen their routines, and his fiancée tries to act supportive, yet he watches them secretly, analyzing every movement, every whisper, every gesture. Behind his dark glasses, his sharp eyes track everything while he remains completely still, determined not to let anyone know that he can see perfectly. To maintain the illusion, he instructs his closest men to pretend they believe him, turning the entire mansion into a silent stage where everyone performs a role. His intention is to expose the truth, to see whether his fiancée truly loves him or whether she is another enemy waiting for his moment of weakness. But he doesn't realize that this dangerous game he has created will not only expose her secrets, it will reveal his own blind spots, and the one person he never accounted for, the one person he least expected to notice his deception, is already watching him more closely than he imagines, the quiet maid moving through the shadows of his world. As the mob boss continues his elaborate performance of blindness, his fiancée's behavior begins to shift in ways that both confirm and complicate his deepest fears. At first, she appears gentle, caring, and attentive, guiding him around the mansion, speaking softly to him and expressing worry about his sudden condition. But once she believes he has adjusted to his new reality, small cracks begin to show, cracks subtle enough that most people would overlook them. But not a man who is secretly watching. When she enters a room, she no longer approaches with the same warmth. Instead, she pauses to study him, as if calculating whether he is truly unable to see. She answers mysterious phone calls in hushed tones, stepping into hallways or locking herself in bathrooms for privacy. Her jewelry, once simple and elegant, now includes an expensive necklace he never bought her. She stays out later than usual, claiming errands, appointments, or visits with friends that have never been mentioned before. And while speaking to the staff, She carries herself with a certain sharpness, a confidence that only seems to surface when she thinks her blind fiancé won't notice. The mob boss watches this all unfold from behind his dark glasses, each moment tightening the knot of suspicion in his chest. Yet what troubles him most is not her actions, but the nagging uncertainty behind them. Are these signs of betrayal, or is he misinterpreting ordinary behavior through the lens of fear? His paranoia grows stronger each day, fueled by the silence of secrets only he believes he can see. What he doesn't know is that someone else is noticing these changes too, not out of suspicion of the fiancé, but because the maid, the one person both of them forget is present, has started to sense that something much bigger is happening just beyond her line of sight. In the heart of this mansion, full of secrets, lies, and silent performances, there is one person who moves quietly enough to see what no one else notices: the maid. She is a black woman in her early 30s, intelligent, observant, and far more perceptive than anyone in the household gives her credit for. To the mob boss, she is invisible. To the fiancé, she is insignificant. To the rest of the staff, she is simply another pair of hands doing the work no one else wants to do. But invisibility is a powerful advantage in a house full of deception. She glides from room to room with her cleaning supplies, her eyes always scanning, her mind always piecing together subtle clues others dismiss. She has learned to read people through tiny details: how they breathe, how they close a door, how their voices shift when they think no one is listening. And lately, she has sensed that something in this mansion is deeply wrong. She noticed the mob boss's strange behavior long before anyone else questioned it. The way his eyes darted for a split second when someone dropped a glass, the way he subtly shifted to avoid bumping into furniture, the way he accidentally stepped around objects he shouldn't have seen. The maid also noticed the fiancé's sudden change in demeanor, her restless packing, her secretive phone calls, her nervous habit of touching that new necklace whenever she talked about money. But the maid stays silent, because silence is how she has survived in this house. She knows that speaking up in a world ruled by violence and power could cost her everything. Still, she keeps watching, storing every detail in the back of her mind like puzzle pieces, waiting for the truth to reveal itself. And without realizing it, she's becoming the only person in the mansion who fully understands that both the mob boss and the fiancé are hiding something dangerous enough to set their entire world on fire. The turning point comes one quiet afternoon when the maid is dusting the shelves in the study, a room the mob boss rarely uses but insists must always be kept spotless. She moves carefully, her footsteps soft against the polished floor, when suddenly she hears him enter behind her. She freezes. He never walks in without his cane tapping ahead of him, never steps so confidently into a room unless he thinks he is alone. She watches from the corner of her eye as he casually adjusts a picture frame on the wall, a task impossible for someone who cannot see. Her heart pounds as she realizes the truth. The mob boss is not blind at all. He is pretending. She forces herself to resume dusting as if nothing happened, but inside her mind, 100 questions ignite at once. Why would he lie? Who is he watching? What danger is she now caught in just by knowing this? Over the next few days, she becomes hyper-aware of every detail: how he flinches when someone drops a tray, how his eyes follow shadows across the floor, how he avoids obstacles without touching them. The more she sees, the more terrified she becomes, because she understands that a man like him would never forgive anyone who uncovers a secret so carefully built. But fear doesn't stop her curiosity. She begins to pay closer attention to his fiancée too, noticing the way her voice grows colder when she thinks he isn't listening, the sly smiles she hides behind polite gestures, the expensive perfume scents that weren't there before. Slowly, the maid starts piecing together a dangerous truth. This entire mansion is a stage, and everyone is acting, not just the mob boss, not just the fiancé, but even those who believe they know what's going on. And while the maid tries her best to remain invisible, she senses something chilling creeping into her reality. In a house full of lies, the first person to see the truth is often the first one to disappear. The maid's unease deepens when she begins to follow the subtle trail left behind by the fiancé, perfume lingering in hallways at odd hours, hurried footsteps late at night, and delicate fingerprints on doors the fiancé supposedly never enters. One evening, while cleaning the upstairs landing, the maid hears the fiancé whispering urgently on the phone behind a barely cracked door. The maid pauses, pretending to adjust a vase as she listens. The fiancé's voice trembles, not with fear, but with excitement. She mentions money, timing, and something about waiting until he's completely helpless. The maid's heart races, and she retreats silently, careful not to be noticed. Over the next few days, she observes the fiancé slipping out of the mansion, dressed in clothes far too elegant for simple errands. Curious and increasingly alarmed, the maid follows her from a distance one afternoon after finishing her chores early. She trails her through crowded streets until the fiancé enters a luxurious café, where she meets a sharply dressed man the maid has never seen before. Their conversation is animated, intimate, and unmistakably affectionate. The maid watches as the fiancé places her hand on the man's cheek, her smile genuine in a way it never is with the mob boss. They exchange envelopes, whispers, and long embraces that reveal a relationship far deeper than friendship. Shocked, the maid realizes that the fiancé's life is built on deception. She has one face for the mob boss and another for the world outside. But the most terrifying part is not the affair itself. It is the discovery that the fiancé's secret lover is tied to something bigger, something dangerous. The man carries himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to power, someone who is not afraid of the mob boss at all. As the maid watches them part ways, she feels a cold realization settle over her. The mob boss thinks he is testing his fiancée, but she is playing a game of her own, and she might not be the only one. What the fiancé is planning could be fatal, and now the maid understands that the danger in the mansion is far greater than a simple lie about blindness. As the maid pieces together the fiancé's hidden life, the mob boss remains consumed by his own carefully crafted illusion, unaware that he has created a trap he himself is falling into. Though he can see everything physically, he is blind in the ways that matter, not to the world around him, but to the truth about the people he depends on. In the quiet hours of the night, he sits alone in his private study, pretending to stare blankly into space, while he actually watches his fiancée's shadow moving under the doorframe, listening to her footsteps, trying to decode every word she speaks to others. But what he cannot see, or refuses to see, is how much his paranoia has distorted his judgment. He misreads kindness as manipulation, loyalty as deceit, and silence as conspiracy. His memories are haunted by the betrayals of his past, friends who turned informants, relatives who sold him out for money, even a lover who once tried to poison him. These scars shape how he sees the world now, leaving him emotionally blind to the possibility that not everyone is out to destroy him. Ironically, the person he trusts the least, his fiancée, he stalks with obsessive suspicion, while the person he never thinks about at all, the maid, has witnessed more truth than he could ever imagine. Yet his greatest blind spot is not the fiancée's secrets or the enemy he believes hides behind her smile. His greatest blind spot is himself. His refusal to confront his own fears and insecurities has created a world where every gesture feels like a threat, every silence feels like betrayal. And while he believes he is in control, watching everything from behind his dark glasses, the reality is that he is navigating his life with the same uncertainty as a truly blind man. Meanwhile, the maid sees what he cannot, the cracks in his soul, the vulnerability he hides, and the danger that is rapidly approaching him from directions he hasn't even begun to suspect. The deeper the maid slips into the secrets of the mansion, the more dangerous her position becomes, as if every truth she uncovers tightens an invisible rope around her neck. She tries to return to her routine, sweeping floors, dusting shelves, serving meals, but her eyes carry a new awareness, and in a house ruled by paranoia. Awareness is deadly. One morning, while clearing dishes from the dining room, she notices the mob boss watching her more closely than usual, his expression unreadable behind his tinted glasses. It sends a chill through her. Perhaps he senses that someone has seen through his lie. Later, as she walks past the hallway near the fiancé's room, she overhears a tense conversation. The fiancé is arguing with someone over the phone, insisting that the plan has to move faster and that he won't suspect anything if we do it now while he's weak. The maid steps back silently, but a loose floorboard creaks beneath her foot, causing the fiancé to whip the door open. Their eyes meet, one filled with shock, the other with icy suspicion, and for the first time, the maid feels truly endangered. The fiancé forces a smile, pretending nothing is wrong, but the maid senses a shift in her demeanor, a hostility barely hidden beneath a veneer of politeness. That evening, the maid finds her cleaning supplies moved, her room door slightly open, her belongings disturbed, small warnings that someone has begun watching her too. The staff grows strangely quiet around her, conversations stopping when she enters, glances exchanged behind her back. She realizes she is no longer unseen. She is a threat to someone. Even more terrifying is the moment she catches the fiancé whispering to a bodyguard, their eyes flicking in her direction as if discussing what to do about her. The maid's heart pounds as she understands the truth. By discovering both the mob boss's lie and the fiancé's betrayal, she has stepped into the center of a war she never wanted to be part of. And in a house where power determines survival, the woman everyone used to overlook has suddenly become the one person both sides need to silence. The storm inside the mansion finally erupts on a night thick with tension, when every lie, every secret, and every whispered plan collides in one explosive moment of truth. The maid, trembling but determined, decides she can no longer remain silent, not when both her life and the mob bosses are in danger. She waits until the house is quiet, the air heavy with the kind of silence that comes before disaster, and enters the study where the mob boss sits alone, pretending once again to be helpless. But before she can speak, the office door bursts open and the fiancé strides in, her face flushed with fury and desperation, her lover, the sharply dressed man from the cafe, standing behind her with a gun raised. The mob boss instinctively reaches for his weapon, forgetting for a split second that he is supposed to be blind, and in that single reflexive motion, his entire facade crumbles. The fiancé's lips curl into a chilling smile as she realizes the truth. He could see the whole time. But she is ready too. She reveals her own secret, confessing that she never loved him, that she has been working with his rival to steal everything he owns, including the empire he built with blood and fear. As accusations fly and weapons are drawn, the maid steps forward shakily and exposes everything she has discovered, the lies on both sides, the danger closing in, the truth neither of them ever wanted to confront. Shock ripples through the room. The mob boss is blindsided by her courage, and the fiancé is enraged that the one person she dismissed as irrelevant is the one who now holds all the power. The confrontation spirals into chaos. Shots are fired, alliances shatter, and the mob boss and his rival lunge toward each other in a violent struggle that leaves the room destroyed and soaked in betrayal. By the time the dust settles, the fiancé's schemes are exposed, her lover is disarmed, and the mob boss realizes that the only person who ever saw the truth clearly was the maid, the one he never thought to trust, the one he never saw until now. In that moment, he understands the final irony. He pretended to be blind to expose her, but it was his pride that blinded him the most. And as the maid stands shaking but unbroken, the truth finally lies open before them all, stark and undeniable. As we reach the end of this unbelievable journey, it's clear that this story was never just about a mob boss pretending to be blind or a fiancée desperate to prove her loyalty. It was about truth, identity, power, and the unexpected courage of someone society often overlooks. Throughout this tale, we witnessed how deception unravels, how hidden intentions rise to the surface, and how the person considered the least important, the quiet black maid working silently in the background, became the key to exposing everything. Her bravery didn't just reveal a twisted test or a deadly scheme, it redefined the fate of everyone involved. Stories like this matter because they remind us that real strength isn't measured by status, wealth, or authority, but by character and conviction. And as always, here on Swift Tale, we bring you stories that open your eyes, stir your emotions, and leave you thinking long after the video ends. If you enjoyed this deep, dramatic unraveling and want more gripping narratives just like it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to drop a comment telling us which part shocked you the most. Your support helps us grow and continue bringing you the most compelling stories on the internet. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and stay tuned to Swift Tale.